Thank you very much, Presiding Officer, and many thanks to Emma Harper for the opportunity to talk about burns. I've used this opportunity to extend the world of people who are familiar with burns to one additional person, and that is my new American intern, Melia Daly, who's sitting in the public gallery, who's written my speech for me tonight. I stand with you today to celebrate the enduring legacy of the great poet Robert Burns and, of course, the Scots language. It's central, I believe, to understand what is meant by the word legacy. Legacy implies something of great significance in the past that continues to affect our present. It's a history ever present and impactful, a perfect description of Scots and the bard. Now, the Scots language has had a turbulent history. It went through periods of discrimination when it was not to be spoken in good company, to times when it was a champion of the Scots people. We have championed the language in large part thanks to Robert Burns, whose memory we celebrate today. It was a language that divided society at parts of its history, but that's partly why it makes such an impact on our legacy today. It shows us the diversity of our history. But it was something that now is a jewel of our culture, where once it was very different. We remember the man who wrote the great literary works in Scots and helped secure the Scots language importance and the definition of Scotland. Burns was, without doubt, a literary genius. You have to read very few of his works to see why that's so. He also, of course, was a man with a reputation for womanising, and entirely justifiably. We rarely talk about one particular woman in his life, and of course that was his wife, Jean Armour. She was the silent, strong supporter of the poet. I suspect being a poet's wife under any circumstances, then or now, not terribly easy. Loyal wife, not one coming forward, but she was always there when Burns needed and loved her. He was arranging Scots into iconic poems. She was making sure that the basics of his life were looked after. She was working to make life better, not just for her, but for her significant family. I'm not sure what role she played in the family beyond those which were hers, of course. Her legacy is alive in Scotland, right alongside that of Burns. So we should think of her as we think of Burns. We work diligently and proudly to celebrate Robert Burns' life. I'm not here to preach on that. I perhaps came to Burns quite late in my life. But I think people right across Scotland understand who Burns is and what he's contributed to Scottish life. People on farms, on ships and cities all know of Burns. They are all part of the community that has inherited the legacy of Burns. The language and the words of Burns live today as they lived when he wrote them. It's a strengthening of the ties that bind us together. We overcome and rise above difficulties by looking at some of the things that Burns write. And we find simple enjoyment in the words of Burns. When we hear Holy Willie's prayer, when we hear Tam O'Shanter, the narrative simply engages us. So it's part of what makes us a Scot, but it's also part of what we contribute to the world community. As Burns said of Jean, to see her was to love her. The legacy of Burns and Scots is that we recognise his words are more than simply words. Their legacy is us.